You've probably never thought about what happens when a shipping container falls off a ship. But right now, tens of thousands of steel boxes are sitting on the ocean floor. Some hold sneakers, some hold furniture. At least one held 28,000 rubber ducks, and they're still washing up on beaches more than 30 years later. The shipping industry says only a few hundred containers fall overboard each year. Ocean scientists say the real number could be 20 times higher. And until this year, 2026, no one was even legally required to count. Here's where they actually end up. The obvious answer is storms. Waves in the North Pacific can tower over 15 meters, taller than a 4-story building, slamming into a ship for days at a time. That alone can rip containers off a deck. But the most dangerous force at sea has a stranger name: parametric rolling. Under very specific wave conditions, a container ship begins to rock side to side, and instead of settling back down, each roll feeds the next one. The ship doesn't correct, it amplifies. Within minutes, a vessel the size of 4 football fields can be swinging 30 or even 40 degrees, back and forth, like a metronome that weighs 200,000 tons. Now think about what's sitting on the deck. Containers are stacked up to 10 high, held together by twist locks and lashing rods. Those systems are engineered for normal conditions. Parametric rolling is not normal conditions. The forces at the top of those stacks become enormous. Lashing snaps, twist locks shear, and entire towers of cargo, hundreds of boxes at a time, peel off the side of the ship and crash into the sea. That's exactly what happened in November 2020. A ship called the One Opus was crossing the middle of the Pacific when it hit severe weather. In a single night, it lost nearly 1,800 containers. One ship, one storm. One of the largest cargo losses in history. 1,800 steel boxes, each one 20 tons or more, scattered across the open ocean in a matter of hours. And here's the part that makes it worse. The crew can't do anything. They can't stop the rolling. They can't grab the containers. They stand on the bridge and watch millions of dollars in cargo disappear over the rail into black water. By the time the ship reaches port, the ocean has already swallowed everything. No recovery, no cleanup, just gone. But sometimes the storm isn't really to blame. Sometimes the real problem was loaded onto the ship before it ever left the dock. Every container that gets loaded onto a ship has a declared weight on its paperwork. That number matters. Heavy boxes go on the bottom of the stack, light ones go on top. The entire structure depends on that order being right. But here's the problem. Shipping lines can't physically open and check thousands of sealed containers before a ship leaves port. They have to trust the paperwork. And the paperwork lies. One inspection study found that nearly 70% of containers declared as dangerous goods had documentation errors or safety violations. 70%. That's not a rounding error. That's a system running on blind faith. So picture a container near the top of a stack that's listed as light cargo. Textiles, maybe. Packaging materials. Except it actually weighs 3 times what the documents claim. Someone misdeclared it to save on shipping fees, or cut corners on hazmat classifications, or simply didn't bother weighing it properly. In calm seas, nothing happens. The stack holds. The twist locks do their job. Nobody notices. But the moment that ship hits rough weather and starts to roll, that stack becomes a tower built upside down. The heaviest weight is exactly where it shouldn't be, at the top, swinging with every wave. Physics doesn't negotiate. It collects. The lashing fails. The stack collapses. Containers tumble into the ocean. And the cause isn't the storm. The cause is a piece of paper filed at a port 6,000 miles away with the wrong number on it. The ship did everything right. The engineering was sound. The lashing was rated for the load it was told to expect. But it was told wrong. And the ocean doesn't care about paperwork. So a container goes over the side. What happens in the next 60 seconds depends entirely on one thing: what's inside the box. A container full of heavy cargo, steel pipes, machinery, engine parts, drops like a stone. Straight down. The ocean in the middle of a shipping lane can be 4 or 5 kilometers deep. That box falls through pitch-black water for several minutes before hitting the seafloor at something close to highway speed. It's gone. No one is recovering it. No one is even looking for it. But a container full of light cargo does something far more dangerous. It floats. Containers are designed to be weather-tight, sealed steel boxes. So if the cargo inside is buoyant enough, clothes, toys, shoes, packaging foam, the box doesn't sink. It drifts, and it doesn't ride high on the surface where someone could spot it. It sits right at the waterline or just below it. A 20-ton steel ram, barely visible in daylight, completely invisible at night, invisible in rough seas, and invisible on radar. Sailors have a name for these: ghost containers. And for small vessels, they're one of the most terrifying hazards on the open ocean. Yachts crossing the Pacific have been found with their hulls torn open, and no explanation other than something massive and hard was floating where nothing should have been. Racing sailors who cross oceans competitively rank drifting containers among the dangers they fear most, precisely because there's no way to detect one. No signal, no warning. You either miss it or you hit it. A floating container can drift for days. Some stay buoyant for weeks, riding ocean currents hundreds of kilometers from where they originally fell, just moving silently through shipping lanes and sailing routes like a slow, invisible mine. Eventually, seawater finds a way in through a seal or a damaged corner, and the box gets heavier and heavier, and then it begins its long, dark trip to the bottom. But here's the thing most people don't realize. Once a container reaches the seafloor, it doesn't just sit there and rust into nothing. It becomes something entirely new. In 2004, a ship called the Taipei lost several containers in a storm off the coast of California. One of them landed inside the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, one of the most closely studied patches of ocean on Earth. Scientists found the box sitting on the seabed and made an unusual decision. They left it there, and they watched. For years, researchers sent robotic submarines down to that one container, documenting everything that happened to it. When it first hit the bottom, it crushed the sediment and everything living beneath it. A steel coffin dropped onto a soft mud ecosystem that had been undisturbed for centuries. Nothing survived the impact zone. But then, something unexpected started happening. Deep-sea creatures began treating the container like a reef. In a world where the floor is nothing but soft mud for miles in every direction, a hard surface is rare. It's valuable. Animals that attach to rocks, corals, sponges, they suddenly had something to grip. New species moved in. Colonies formed. An entire micro-ecosystem built itself around a lost shipping container on the bottom of the ocean, and not all of it was good. Some of the species that colonized the box were the wrong ones. Animals that wouldn't normally exist on that part of the seafloor were now thriving on a steel island that will sit there for centuries, altering a habitat that had been stable long before humans ever put cargo on a ship. Now multiply that by every container ever lost. Thousands of steel boxes scattered across the ocean floor, each one an accidental monument, each one a tiny, unplanned experiment in what happens when you drop man-made structures into ecosystems that never asked for them. But sometimes the cargo doesn't stay on the bottom. Sometimes it breaks free from the box and comes back to the surface in ways nobody expected. In January 1992, a ship crossing the North Pacific lost a container holding 28,000 plastic bath toys. The box broke open somewhere between Hong Kong and Tacoma, and thousands of yellow rubber ducks spilled into the ocean. They've been washing ashore ever since. Alaska, Hawaii, South America. Some ducks rode ocean currents north through the Bering Strait, froze into Arctic ice, drifted across the top of the planet, and turned up years later on beaches in the Atlantic, on the other side of the world from where they started. A bath toy that was supposed to end up in a store in Washington state completed a journey no shipping company would ever plan. But here's the twist. Oceanographers realized they'd been handed something priceless, a free science experiment. 28,000 floating tracers scattered across the Pacific, each one mapping currents better than any instrument ever deployed on purpose. The drift patterns of those rubber ducks helped researchers refine models of how the entire ocean moves. Toy ducks did more for our understanding of global ocean circulation than some research programs costing millions. It happened again with a container of Nike sneakers. Shoes started washing up on beaches along the Pacific coast, and beachcombers paired with scientists tracked them ashore for years, matching serial numbers to shipment records. Then, in 1997, off the coast of Cornwall in England, a container spilled nearly 5 million pieces of Lego into the sea. People still find them on those beaches today. And in a detail nobody could have scripted, many of the pieces were ocean-themed. Tiny plastic octopuses and dragons washing out of the actual ocean decades after they went in. Which raises the question this entire story has been building toward. How many containers actually fall off ships every year? The answer depends entirely on who you ask. Ask the shipping industry, and you get a reassuring number. The World Shipping Council, which represents about 90% of global container capacity, publishes a yearly count. In 2023, it reported just 221 containers lost, the lowest number ever recorded. In 2024, the figure rose to 576, still well below the long-term average of around 1,300 a year. Out of 250 million containers shipped annually, that's a loss rate of roughly 1 in a million. Sounds almost perfect. Now ask ocean scientists, and you get a completely different answer. American ocean agencies have estimated the true number could be as high as 10,000 containers a year. Two estimates, 20 times apart, about the same ocean. How is that possible? Because for decades, reporting a lost container was essentially voluntary. A box that slips quietly off a deck at night in international waters, carrying nothing hazardous, leaves no debris field. No investigation, no headline. The ocean keeps the secret, and the paperwork stays clean. The official numbers capture the big famous disasters, but the slow, steady trickle of one box here, 2 boxes there, scattered across thousands of voyages, simply evaporates from the record. The honest answer is, nobody knows. And that might be the most remarkable fact in this entire story. In an industry tracked by satellites, sensors, and artificial intelligence, thousands of 20-ton steel boxes can vanish without a trace. But that era is ending. Starting this year, 2026, new international maritime rules make reporting mandatory for the first time in history. Every lost container must be officially declared. The black box of ocean shipping is finally being opened. The industry is also building smarter lashing systems, better stowage rules, and predictive routing that steers ships around the exact wave conditions that trigger parametric rolling. The losses will never reach zero. But we're about to finally learn the real number. As long as humans send floating skyscrapers of cargo through the planet's worst weather, the ocean will take its percentage. That's not a flaw in the system. That's the cost of moving everything you own across water. The next time you're standing on a beach, look down. That weathered piece of plastic by your feet might not be ordinary litter. It might be a traveler from a steel box that fell off a ship thousands of kilometers away, years ago, finally finishing a journey no one ever planned. But falling into the ocean isn't even the strangest fate cargo can meet. That story is next. Subscribe so you don't miss it.